The BMW M4, one of my favourite looking M cars. The F80 M4 was released alongside the F80 M3 back in 2013, technically taking after the previous E92 M3 coupe. It was the first M car in that series to have the S55 twin-turbo engine producing 430 PS. Thanks to this engine, it will do 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds, leading on to a top unrestricted speed of 190 miles an hour.
Episode of Cars with Jay, we're going to be looking at the 2014 BMW M4. Now this, being a 2014 model, is a pre-LCI version, so it's not facelifted. Now LCI, in case you're wondering, means life cycle impulse. Now we're going to be looking at what you get with this car now that you can buy these for as cheap as £24,000 in 2020. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick walk around this M4 because, as you can see, it's not a stock M4. The power that's running is completely stock, but the rest of the car has a few cosmetic modifications which are all genuine M performance parts. So the front kidney grills on this car are from the competition, so that's a fairly cheap enough mod to do, but a mod I recommend doing. It just gets rid of the chrome on the outside and it really complements the rest of this car with the D-chrome. Now I personally would go for a black BMW badge, still with the blue but just with the exterior chrome done in black, and the BMW still in chrome as well, just to give it that kind of offset. Behind the kidney grills, I'm not sure if you can see, but there is some Sakir orange painted accents on the radiator support, which is really nice little touch for the car. But overall, you can see the car looks really aggressive, and especially with that front splitter, it just looks really nice. And I think one thing that's really important about the M4 is its looks. It is one of the best looking cars BMW have ever made, in my opinion. We've got the non-LCI lights. That's the only downside I really have with the styling of this car. The LCI lights look so much better in my opinion, but they're very expensive, which I'll get onto later. You've got these nice M4 badges here, which are in gloss black. The rest of the car has a D-chrome as well. Going off to the back, this nice carbon lip spoiler, which I really do think complements the rear, because without that spoiler it looks a bit flat. And this lovely aggressive rear diffuser, which you can see here. So I think the styling on this car is absolutely superb. I would just recommend changing the lights to the LCI lights, but again, they're like £1,000 just for the rear and £1,000 for the front, even more. And with parts of this car getting stolen, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're probably nicked. So inside the M4's cabin, now what do you actually get for your money? Well, you get these glorious bucket seats that really do support you when driving, although they're leather. Now with this car being more of a luxury upmarket everyday kind of car, I wouldn't imagine using this just on weekends. Leather's a really nice touch. However, for spirited driving, I do prefer cloth seats or Alcantara seats because it just gives you that little bit of grip, especially if you're skinny like me. Now from BMWs, I don't know if you would agree with me, the top half of the dashboard always looks the best. Everything below that kind of looks a bit boring and kind of an afterthought. Take these air conditioning and radio controls for example. In a car this expensive, you'd expect a nicer design, like these big chunky buttons. It kind of reminds me of a Lexus or one of those phones that old people use to call their grandchildren. So I can't imagine using this armrest when I'm driving like this, because as you can see, my elbow's kind of falling off of it, so that doesn't work so great. And what's interesting about this car is we've got a handbrake now, which I think is really pointless in the M4. And you're probably thinking, oh, you know, handbrakes are cool, you know, automatic handbrakes are a pain in the arse. Well, the problem with this handbrake is you've got an automatic gearbox. Like, there's really nothing you're going to do that warrants pulling this handbrake up. So, and the other annoyance is when you drive off in a hurry, you forget to put it down. It's easily done because it kind of blends into the whole interior. I love the analog dials on this, and I like how they've put a little display in the bottom right hand corner. It's just traditional M car. It's just so nice, and it's always something nice to watch. And steering wheel adjustment, it does come out towards you. I prefer to have it on the furthest out setting, but you do have a range of adjustment up, down and towards you, which is very important I think when looking for a car, because some cars don't do that. In terms of pedal placement, the pedals are offset slightly to the right hand side. They haven't increased the width of the brake pedal, which I've noticed with some automatics, but I do think the brake pedal could be a little bit bigger, just a little bit bigger. There's so much space down there, so there's no reason why. And with this one, you have the added benefit of a sunroof. Give it time.
The interior of the M4 is actually a rather nice place to be. Few things to note. I think the Harman Kardon sound system is a fantastic audio system, and you should aim to get one if you do not plan a stereo upgrade. The MBT system isn't that outdated. The only real difference in the newer LCI M4s is that you get a touchscreen and software giving you new menu layouts and animations. Down in the center console there is multiple buttons to adjust the way the car drives. Heads-up display is a bonus on this car as it does provide quite useful when you're gunning it through the country lanes or when on track. The steering wheel is an aftermarket option which is finished in a gorgeous perforated leather and Alcantara. I think the carbon really does finish off the interior, although this is not common in all M4 models, and extended leather would have been a nice option on the dashboard too.
So the part you've all been waiting for, what is this car like to drive? Now when you start the car up in drive on the M4, as standard it comes with efficient, sport and sports. So that's sport on the suspension, sport on the steering wheel. Now I like this car in M1 mode, but for the time being I'm going to start off in comfort across the board. So let's see what this car is actually like to drive. And already it feels really normal, just like pootling around all of these country lanes and stuff like that. I don't feel like I'm in something really powerful. I'm not in a 430 brake horsepower rear wheel drive M car. I'm in just a BMW. And I think that's what one of these things with these cars is, they're definitely daily drivers. Like I couldn't imagine buying one of these and only using it on the weekend, because it just doesn't feel as special as say a Porsche, for example. The experience a Porsche gives you is, from my experience, one of the best driving experiences you could ever have. Now this is different, this is outright performance, this is put your foot down, head to the back of the seat, turbocharged, you know, it's leery, the exhaust crackles and pops.
Speaking of exhaust, let's have a listen to what the M4 sounds like.
Acceleration's brutal. Everything about this car is like outlandish, and that's kind of what it's really good at being. You know, the rear end steps out, the way it looks is just incredible compared to like an equivalent Porsche for the same money. And you see lots of these cars modified online, and people have done some crazy things with these. Even like a satin black wrap just makes the car look so aggressive, and it is, as I said earlier, one of the best looking BMW M cars that they've ever produced. It just looks perfect on every single angle. I don't think there's an angle that this car doesn't look good in. If you disagree with me, please put it in the comment section below. Now, everything changes when we press this M1 button. So immediately it doesn't downshift, but I've noticed a slight weight change in the steering wheel. The suspension feels a bit firmer, and the throttle response is a bit more responsive. So that's nice. It's smart, it's intelligent. I hate automatic systems, bearing in mind this is dual clutch, it's not a torque converter. I hate automatic systems where they just don't know what you want to do. You know, they're struggling, and I feel like this car is like that in comfort mode. But second you press M1, it's absolutely phenomenal.
I'm the type of person that prefers cars where there is only one drive setting and you either like it or you don't. The M4 has a multitude of options, but comfort for me just doesn't cut it. It lacks that responsiveness in all departments and really nullifies the driving experience. Sport, however, is superb. It sharpens throttle response, increases the weight in the steering wheel and makes the car feel sharper and more agile.
Now we're in Sport Plus. So pressing the M2 button, we've gone to Sport Plus. Now we've got Sport Plus across our throttle response, our suspension and our steering. I'm going to put my foot down, let's see what happens. So without even worrying about it, the car picks up to national speed limit. Like, I barely hit fourth and we're already up there, and we didn't even make use of the full rev range. We're hitting 5,000 RPM. I noticed on this road, because of the car's setup, it does follow the road a lot, and in some ways it feels a bit, you have to be very on the ball with the car. It's following the camber and undulations of the road. Now I don't know if that's because of the wheel setup, but it feels a bit like you really have to concentrate, you couldn't just float.
The M4 overall doesn't feel like a traditional sports car, but more like a fast business executive car. It's a nice place to be, and the gear ratios really complement spirited day-to-day driving without compromising long motorway journeys. The power curve in the first generation M4 is quite spiky, making the rear easily excitable. A remap will sort this out and you don't have to always increase the power.
But I'm throwing this car about like I would my Clio, and actually it feels really good. It feels really compliant. Not at one point in my brain I'm thinking, wow, I've got 440 brake horsepower in Sport Plus to the rear wheels. It's going good. What you don't get is the same feeling you do in a supercar, a mid-engine supercar where you low down to the ground and you have a lot more confidence going into the corners. You do sit fairly high in this car. That's kind of my only gripe. Seats feel really firm. The bolster adjustment keeps us from sliding around into the seats and stuff. But I will say in Sport Plus, on these roads, it's still very, very bumpy. So I've reverted it back to my favorite setting, which is M1. Now M1 and M2 are configurable by the user, and in this particular case, M1 is sport across all the different settings. And one thing I've noticed when driving this car is the gear ratios. You cannot even hit past 4th gear and you're already braking the speed limit. So for the enjoyment factor, yeah, you only need to really downshift and upshift 1 or 2 gears. Going around the country lanes as well, you don't really want to be going through so many gears. But it feels enjoyable. Like it hasn't really come across my mind like the gears need to be shorter. The car picks up pace very quickly, and that's all helped to that twin turbo. Now, despite having 500 Newton meters of torque, the way it puts its power down is really confidence inspiring. It doesn't feel like it's going to break out on you. Now, obviously going around the corner in Sport Plus, traction eased off, it's going to snap the back end out. That's to be expected. But the way it puts its foot down normally, even on a really bumpy road like this, it's instant. It's so nice. Now, the gearbox isn't as fast as like a PDK gearbox, so it does take a while to change down. So you really have to be on the ball with when you want to change down a gear. Enough about the performance. Let's talk about the boring stuff.
You can expect 28 miles per gallon on the motorway, 16 around town, which making an average of around 20 miles per gallon. In today's climate, the car will cost around £75 to fill up a full tank. With these cars, there is no scheduled maintenance like you would find with other cars. The car is clever enough to know what service it needs and when it needs it. Now, around 35k or 50k miles, you may find that it will need a major service. So I'd recommend buying one with it, but if you need to do it, you can expect a cost of around £250 to £300 for a minor service, which we're just talking oil filters, oil and a pollen filter, and a major service around £800, which includes that and a lot more. If you need additional fluids such as brake fluid or differential fluid, you are talking about an extra £100 to £200 on top of that price. Brake fluids will need doing every 2 years, mind. A set of 4 Michelin Pilot Sport tyres will cost you around £713 plus fitting. Brake discs and pads will cost you around £2,050, with the discs making up 80% of that cost. Now that doesn't include fitting either.
So overall, what do I like about this car then? So the interior is great. Like, yeah, it's a bit boring, but it really feels upmarket and professional. The styling of this car is absolutely gorgeous, and I love these cars, especially the later generation LCI models, 67 plate and above. They look absolutely amazing. But if you can get a 17 plate version of this car, a late 17 plate, not a 67, you avoid paying the premium car tax, and the car just looks gorgeous. You get the updated systems. Everything about it is just so nice.
Thank you for watching my review on the BMW M4. If you like this video, please give it a like rating, and if you want to see more from my channel, please hit that subscribe button.